Hello. Welcome along to episode 229 of Adventures in Pop. My name is Simon Jacobs, as it always is. And you are terribly welcome. Um, I'm still I'm still looking at my YouTube plaque every now and again to remind myself of my many thousands of subscribers. That was my 100,000 plaque, which is incredibly nice. But it's a bit out of date now because really I'm closer to whisper it 160,000. And, thank you, thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, well, you don't want to be left out, do you? I think now is a good time to subscribe because, you don't want to be the last one to not have subscribed. I mean, you just look foolish. So I'm just saying, just putting it out there. What I want to talk about today is an interesting one. It's a subject of inspiration for creative people. And, specifically, I'm talking about people who write songs and music. There is always this thing that people refer to about inspiration. It's about sometimes what I think people do who are in the kind of artistic, creative business is they kind of they tell themselves that today's not necessarily a good day for being creative or for writing anything because they're not feeling inspired. They're waiting for inspiration. And I guess my question with inspiration, and I've always had a bit of a problem with the whole notion of inspiration, is what is it, and should you wait for it? What if, like a bus that's been cancelled, it just doesn't come, and you're going to just sit at the bus stop and wait forever? So first of all, when we talk about inspiration, it is one of these things that gets, banded around quite a lot, isn't it, really? I was really inspired, or, I want to be an inspiration to others. What do we mean by this? Well, I looked up a definition of inspiration, and there were few, and some of them were reasonably different from each other. So it's quite interesting just to take a look. What is inspiration? It is something that makes someone want to do something, or it gives someone an idea about what to do or what to create. It's a force or an influence that inspires someone. Now, that's a reasonable definition, isn't it? But what I take from that definition is that inspiration is something that is happening outside of you, and therefore, you might be waiting for it to somehow happen to you. And I guess my first question is, what if it doesn't happen? Can you make it happen yourself? If inspiration is not coming from out of the clouds, I don't know whether it comes from a higher power. There's an underlying hint, I think, that it comes from outside, and it's a kind of godly type force. I think for some people they probably really do believe that, and I'm not trying to disrespect that view. It's just that that makes me even less willing, I think, to sit at the bus stop and wait for the bus that might never come. So it's something outside of you. And look, I'll tell you one of the stories I remember hearing, and the question for you is, does this ring any bells for you? Because it sort of does for me, but I'm a bit worried about it. Okay, I remember hearing an interview, very interesting interview, with the American singer-songwriter Tori Amos. It was quite a number of years ago, but it absolutely stuck in my head because she was talking about being inspired by some greater power than her. And she said it didn't happen very often, which in a way I was quite glad to hear her say that. She said it didn't happen very often, but she said there have been a few times in her life where a song has come to her so rapidly and so completely without her feeling like she's really doing anything. She's become the channel for that song to be passed through to create it, that she has felt on a few occasions, not very many, but on a few occasions, that something has come from somewhere else has been channeled through her, and her job is just to get it down. And it happens very fast, and it turns out to be something that you really like, or turns out to be something really successful. and you're left wondering how you did it because you can't really remember much of the process of getting it down there. Okay, so from my point of view, I would say that's happened to me on a very few occasions. It has happened. It has happened where it's almost like a feeling that you're writing a song, but it's kind of writing itself because it's so obvious what needs to be the next line or the next line, either of lyric or of music, and within 10 minutes you've got the whole thing down. You've recorded a kind of guide version of it, and it's done. You've got a song, you've got the melody, you've got all parts of the melody, you've got a lyric that fits with it. Yes, now you've got to record it properly and do the arrangement and everything, but the songwriting is done. Where did it come from? That's the question. Where did it come from? Did it come out of the clouds, or did it come from something you saw, you read, a film you've seen, or something like that? Because all of those things can provide inspiration. It doesn't have to be a higher power. So, is that possible? Is it possible that something just happens outside of you and you are just there to get it down as quickly as possible? That is your songwriting job, is to simply make sure that it exists on the page in reality. So look, I'm not dismissing that. And as I say, I do think it's happened a few times to me, but not very often. So if it doesn't happen very often, what's happening the rest of the times? Well, this is the important point, I think. The rest of the times, I think that what I'm doing is what everybody else does, which is I sit down to an empty page on a laptop and my keyboard and maybe my guitar, and I start doing something. I start sort of working on something, even if there's nothing there, to begin with. And I guess this is really my point here. I think that instead of sitting at the bus stop or waiting for the bus that might never come, the bus called inspiration that comes from somewhere else, picks you up along the way and takes you somewhere, I think you've probably got to get moving yourself. Because 9 times, no, not 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, I think that your songs, your music, your songwriting craft is not a result of divine inspiration or any other kind of inspiration. I think it's probably the result of you sitting there and working at something that might, to begin with, feel a bit like you're pushing water uphill. You're not sure if it's going anywhere, and goodness knows it might not. We've all been in that situation of starting a song, having a go, and then realizing fairly quickly that it's just not going anywhere, or you think it's a good idea, but by the time you get it down, it's not a good idea anymore, and you're bored of it very quickly. That's fine, but instead of waiting for the bus to come along, you just need to carry on doing the work. So I would say, it's all very well to be inspired, but for most of us mere mortals, I think we have to make that inspiration happen. And let's not even worry about whether we're inspiring other people. I don't think that's for us to say, is it? I think, maybe other people might say that at some point one day, but we shouldn't be worrying about that stuff. We're not here to be inspiring to others. We're not here to be role models to others. I think we're here to just try and write the best music and lyrics, the best songs that we can, given what we're able to do. And look, you've heard me talk a lot about using samples to help, get a song started, using lyrics that I've rejected from other songs. I think really, yes, it's a really good idea to try different approaches to help get the creative juices running, but I still don't think I would call it inspiration. When people say, I've been inspired to do this, I'm always, I'm curious about that, because inspiration seems to be, I think inspiration happens quite rarely, and when it happens, you should be incredibly grateful, and you shouldn't rely on it, because if you rely on it, I think in this business, I really think you could. Well, if I'd relied on it, let's be honest, I think I might have written 5 songs in my entire life. and that's not really going to get you anywhere. So, look, I'm here to say on this episode, inspiration is wonderful, but it doesn't happen very often, I don't think. I mean, if you disagree with me, you please leave your comments below. And I don't think you should hang around waiting for inspiration. I think you should get moving yourself and, put in basically the hard graft, the hours, the work that is going to lead to something happening creatively. Because I think without you kind of giving it a big kickstart, inspiration might be not forthcoming for some time, if ever. So there we go. That's my downbeat assessment of inspiration and how it doesn't help us. And until next time, I should just say, just out in the last couple of days is the lovely track that I've just released as track 10 from my album, and it's called If I Can Love Again. It's marvellous. I think you should go and listen to that. And then next week, a very good Gold Hawk Foxes track, if I say it myself, called Magic, is going to be out at the beginning of June, next Friday, in fact. I will see you soon. Take it easy. Bye-bye.